I'm 𝘾𝙤𝙡𝙚. I am a storyteller. I tell stories about folks and contemporary stories. I got some paranormal stuff going on. I'm dealing with some romance, with some love, with some drama and all that good stuff. And this is an interesting experience.
Whoa. Doing 90 on the jet skis. Yeah, we living. Tell these haters come and get me. Come and get me. Little mama, you look sexy. And she bad. I wanna.
So I am part of this team at the Pyramid, and you know how they do when you get on a new team and everyone goes around the room and says some small fun fact about yourself. And in the midst of like the conversation, pretty large group of people, I discussed just a lot of my hobbies, like the comic book nerd, pop culture parts of it, and then I ended on being a writer, enjoying books. And there was this guy who led the meeting, and his eyes like lit up. It was like, you know, you find someone with similar interests, especially if they're a little bit niche. Well, even if they're not, when you find somebody who shares in the experiences and things that you like, chef's kiss. And so he was like, okay, let me stop you. What books are you currently reading? And so I rattled off a love song for Ricky Wilde. I rattled off If This World Were Mine, B-Boy Blues, just a bunch of different books, Black authors, romance, contemporary. And he kind of stopped. I was like, okay, what? Like, those names were so unfamiliar to him. And so everyone else kept talking, and then he came back to me. I was like, okay, yeah, so I really love books too. And, you know, we're going to have to get together, this, that, and the third. And I was like, okay, man, I mean, that's cool. That's fine with me. And so when he asked me after that brief interaction, what type of fantasy books are those? And I was like, fantasy, these are romance books. This is so, like, his face did this thing. I can't even explain it, but it was almost like he was like, what? Like he couldn't understand or did not believe, or like it was maybe some sort of cognitive dissonance. I don't know. I'm assuming. But what I take from this is there's been conversations about romance. It's always, these are women books. People at large, I don't see really taking them seriously.
This is why men don't read romance books, because men written in them are so ridiculous.
The way women write men in romance is genuinely hilarious, and I'm not saying there's a problem with it. Indulge your fantasy. But like, their equivalent to slaying dragons is making a man apologize. Not just any man though, like the man. He's 6'3". He's muscle bound. He's a billionaire. But something happens. He makes a mistake. And he has to go off and find Jane, plain Jane from accounts receivable, and beg for her to take him back. He says he's going to spend the rest of his life making it up to this woman. And then she kind of waffles on whether or not she's going to take this billionaire back. She goes, fine, I'll do this for you. I'll do this for you. And it's fine. If fire-breathing dragons were actually real, would men actually be capable of slaying them? Probably not. And is a billionaire coming to sweep anyone off their feet?
Romance books are cheesy, trashy, guilty pleasure reads, not real books. Whenever someone says that, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Please share your last read. And inevitably, it's like Chuck Palahniuk.
So I've always been told that horror and romance are the two genres that people kind of look down on, like they don't take it seriously. And as a horror author, like, I get it for horror, because I don't take myself seriously when I'm writing it. But I don't understand why people don't take romance seriously. Actually, I do know why. It's the misogyny. It's always the misogyny. But like, romance is like the backbone of a lot of literature. Like, they are the load-bearing pillar of literature. And there's a very good reason why. It's because that romance authors know how to write men in a way that is not thoroughly annoying. Like, do you know how hard that is? Have you met a man? They're so annoying. And I can say that because I have two brothers and I love them dearly, but they are deeply unserious people. Romance authors know how to write men in a way that like gives them potential to be more than just annoying. Like, if Pride and Prejudice didn't have an element of romance to it, I would be rooting for Darcy to die of typhus. Honestly, more men should read romance, if just for the good representation of y'all.
When I say at large, of course, there's a large romance reader and writer presence, but when you talk to people who like fantasy books and, you know, other types of books, a lot of times romance is seen as like less than, and that's something I've always known, but it's never bothered me. I'm like, whatever, I'm still gonna read what I want to read. But it was so interesting to experience that interaction like real time, and not somebody online trash talking romance. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, and I know every genre gets their slack, fluff, bull, whatever, but specifically with romance, I wonder how much of it was he didn't really engage with romance, or how much of it is that I'm a man who's like telling you about all these romance books I like, maybe even me being a black man and you're not used to maybe seeing or perceiving or experiencing black men with those desires. I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't really care. It's just interesting that I was able to like experience that in real time, and he kind of, I don't know, it was just such a weird thing, but I was like, well, you know, they're great books. I've been reading these books since I was a kid. Like, this is nothing for me. He's like, well, I got some suggestions for you to read, because he's really into fantasy, of course. And I told him that, you know, I like fantasy. Haven't really dug my knees too deep into a fantasy book in quite some time. It's more or less the television shows and movies. It's like, oh, I have this and the third, and what about Dune and this and that? I'm like, bro, okay. So I asked him, being funny, I said, is Dune is Dune a romance? Is that the romance story with the people who live in the sand, and it's the king and queen who's fighting for their love, like Romeo and Juliet, man? So I don't know, whatever. All this being said, it's so interesting how seeing the conversations and discourse online and then watching it play out in person. And I don't know. I'm going to hold this experience with me for some time, and I'm sure use it some kind of way to inform some characters or some happenings in my own books. But that was interesting. I'll say that was that was interesting. So let me know, what are your thoughts on this particular interaction? Do you have any of your own to share where romance was kind of looked at sideways, or maybe you yourself were not looked at as the maybe stereotypical romance reader? I don't know, but whatever it is, let me know. And keep reading.
Just be real, don't upset me. Yo, I ain't got time for the